planting your garden, especially with the pandemic and the COVID, is more important to most people than it has been ever before. Another thing is people are more focused now, as well as they should be, on being able to provide food for their family throughout the whole year, especially everything that they can from their garden. But I used to be like this too, is we really only had one main garden and we did it during the summertime. A lot of people figure you just do one big summer garden and that's it. However, with almost every climate, you can get in at least 2 more plantings and essentially have 3 gardens all throughout the year. So planning is absolutely key though to making sure that you, one, have the seeds, you have the right amount of the crops and the right crops for the right planting time. So in the early springtime, and of course you're going to be going by your last average frost date when we're planting our spring gardens. So that's going to vary. You can just pop your zip code into Google or whatever search engine you like to use and find out what your last average frost date is in the spring if you don't know what it is. But that's going to allow you to count backwards or to know when you're going to be planting your crops for your area. But in the springtime, there is a lot of vegetables that we can be growing and harvesting and not waiting until summer. And actually, most of them, you're going to get a lot better crop. You're going to have less issues with things bolting as we get into that summer heat with these cool weather vegetables. And so you actually get more. It's easier on you as the gardener, but it's making sure that you get them in at the right time. And this year, because of COVID and all the pandemic stuff and things that we witnessed last year, it's really key that you are planning ahead even further in advance. But first off, a lot of what you have in a fall or winter garden is also going to be a lot of the same things that you're going to have going into a spring garden because they're things that do well in cool weather. So for example, a lot of things we like to do in our early spring garden is going to be cauliflower and broccoli. These do really well in spring. The seeds will germinate when the soil's a little bit cooler. You can start them inside, but they are frost hardy down into the 20s. So even if you are still getting some frost in the spring or some early freezes, it's not going to harm them. Now, one caveat to that though, and this is where that planning is so key, is making sure that when they're little baby seedlings, that they aren't exposed to those low temperatures. So once they're established plants like these guys, they can get those cold temps and it's not going to harm them. But if they're just little itty bitty baby starts and they're exposed to those temperatures, oftentimes it can kill them. So that's where it's really key that you have that planting in or you're starting some of those seeds indoors. Some other crops that do really well in the early springtime are going to be things like beets. So here I've got some of my beets. I still need to mulch these with straw, which if you didn't catch the video on the vegetables that I keep in the winter, or in the garden, I should say, during the fall and winter months, go and watch that because that'll give you some great ideas on what you can do with that fall planting for the third crop. Some other things that do really well are going to be lettuce. So you want to make sure you're getting cool varieties, hardy varieties of lettuce, but those grow really well in the early spring. In fact, I have lettuce that I will put out in February, and then as it continues and it grows on, we'll be harvesting it clear through into April and then into May before I'm putting in the next crop. Some other vegetables to also consider are going to be your cabbages. So you can do regular cabbage, which I've got some here. This one I got planted a little bit late. Remember that key is your planting time for successful crops. So this I could have planted a little bit earlier. So I'm making notes in my planner for a lot of my cabbage and my broccoli and cauliflower crops. When I plant them for the fall winter garden, they need to go in the ground if I'm direct seeding a few weeks earlier. Cabbage does great, regular cabbage, and then I've also got some Napa cabbage that's going really well here. This is great for kimchi is usually what we use our Napa cabbage for, but it does really well in the cool weather and can be definitely done in the spring. As well as I've got Brussels sprouts and kale. Now the Brussels sprouts you plant in the early spring, but Brussels sprouts take about 100 to 120 days before they come to harvest. So some things you'll plant in the spring, but you're actually not going to get to harvest them in the spring. But things like daikon radish and kale will do really well, and you can also do an early planting of potatoes in the spring, and then you can get 2 crops of potatoes. So you can get your early spring potatoes in, and then you can also do another planting in summer that you would be harvesting in the fall. So you really want to be thinking of crops and vegetables and timing those different plantings. So ideally, you would be able to put in at least 2, if not 3 plantings in the same beds or the same area and rotate those through. So you're basically getting 3 gardens in 1 year, which of course is really going to increase the amount of vegetables that you get. However, you have to make sure that you have the seeds and you know your seed starting dates for those of us that do need to seed start some of our things inside. So I'm going to give you some of my best tips on getting your seeds early to avoid having them all be sold out, or some of the seed companies just could not keep up with the demand, and so they actually shut down. We're not taking any orders for a while until they could get caught up. So one of the things that we did this past year that if you don't have it already ready, I recommend doing as soon as possible, and that is making sure that you have all of your garden seed. Now, we do quite a bit of seed saving. So this is my seed for our green Tar Heel pole beans that my family's been seed saving for over 100 years. So this is our green bean. And then this is our seed on our October bean, which is a Shelly bean. They're usually ready in October, hence, I know, really clever there, right? The name October bean that we use as a dried bean, but this is also our seed. Now, if you haven't been seed saving, you're like, well, that doesn't work very well for me, but this is a year where you definitely, and I would recommend, begin to learning about seed saving. So if you have not gotten your seeds yet, you want to make sure that you are purchasing, even if you're not sure that you're going to seed save, if you have open pollinated or heirloom seeds to begin with, then you have the option to seed save from them, even if you decide you might not. But if you're like, man, we really are going to do seed saving, you've got your heirloom seeds, then that part is already done for you. So we don't seed save everything. So I do have seed saves here. I have seed saving on quite a few. So this is all of my vegetable seeds currently are in this storage container here. So let me see here. And you'll see in some of them, like in here, I have got some carrot seed that I have seed saved myself. So I just put them in a little Ziploc bag, and I usually try to mark it with the the year and the variety on the bag. And a lot of your seeds are viable for a number of years, provided that you store them in an area that doesn't have any direct sunlight. So these, I have them out right now just to show you, but then they stay in a back closet that doesn't have any windows, any direct light, and stays relatively cool and dry, of course. But seeds will be viable for at least a couple of years, if not 3 or 4. They, over time, they just begin to lose some of their germination rate. So meaning if you were to plant 10 seeds, for example, the first year probably all 10 would germinate. That'd be 100% germination rate. If the seed is like 3 years old, then maybe only 7 of the 10 seeds germinate. So then you would have obviously 70% germination rate. So it just kind of goes down over time. But I have planted some seed that's been like 5 years old, and almost all of it has germinated. So the only thing that I don't recommend that you get super far ahead of time that doesn't seem to have a good shelf life is onion seed. So if you're actually doing onion seed, which I do have some onion seed here that we did last year, and I'm just going to test the germination rate on it this year just to see, and not onion sets. We're actually buying like the little tiny little onion bulbs and you're planting them but doing them from seed. They don't have a good storage rate. So if they're over a year old, you can test them if you don't have any fresh, but usually they don't germinate very well. So mine is kind of a combination of everything, of seed saved ourselves and then also from seed stores. So I do the majority of my seed shopping, I do online. Some of my favorite companies that do organic and heirloom is Siskiyou Seeds. Now this is a seed company out of Oregon. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm actually in Washington State. But they have a lot of varieties because they're actually seed saving on site and from local farms that's really similar to my growing climate. Now, I actually have readers and members of the Pioneering Today Academy, as well as inside my different gardening courses, that don't live in the Pacific Northwest and have ordered seed from them and have been really happy with them too. But just know if you have a cooler climate or you're looking at doing some of those spring and fall gardens that is cool weather, they have a great seed selection. I've been highly impressed with the germination rate and the viability of the seeds that I've gotten from them. Really like it. Another company that's really great is called Seeds for Generations. This is actually by a friend of mine and his wife and his kids, and they have an heirloom seed company. The kids actually help do all the packing. So they'll write cute little notes to you when you get your package of seeds from them, and they are heirloom seeds as well, and really good prices. So that can be another great source. And you'll see I have a combination of all different companies because not all companies carry the same variety. And I like to test out different varieties. And just kind of spread the seed ordering love. And another thing that's great about that too is if one company gets sold out of something, or we saw this past year, actually, that there was quite a few companies, Heirloom, or Baker Creek, their website is heirloomseeds.com, I believe. But Baker Creek Seeds, they were so inundated with orders that they didn't shut their website down, but they wouldn't take any new orders for a few days until they could get caught up. So I'm trying to see, I know I have some packets of seed from them somewhere. I do like Baker Creek as well. I started ordering from them when we started doing all heirloom a long time ago. So here I've got some different tomato seeds. And actually that's where I first got my San Marzano Lungo number 2, which is my favorite paste tomato that all my tomato sauce and all my tomato, those kind of products for not just fresh eating that I like to grow, I got from them. So here's one of those seed packets. Another seed company that I like to order from as well, I'm trying to see if I have any left from them. Johnny Seeds is a great one, and I have a blog post that has a list with links of all of the seed companies that I'll order from and that you might want to check out and consider as well. But the other one is the Seed Savers organization. So they have some really cool and different unique varieties, and I also like to order from them. I don't know if I have any packets to actually show you in here. As you can see, I've got quite a bit. I have it pretty much alphabetized from B all the way to Z for my zucchini. So this is all of my vegetable seeds except for what I'm seed saving myself. We just need too much of this. I can't fit it in these little things. So they go in my mason jars. So this is pretty much predominantly my vegetable seeds. And then here, this one's not full yet. I think that means I need to go seed shopping, don't you agree? But this is my flower and medicinal herbs and a lot of my companion planting seeds. So I've got different types of nasturtium. I use orange nasturtium. This was a combo pack to help for cabbage moths, to help deter them. So I plant this in between my cabbages and the Brussels sprouts, anything kind of in that cool family. I do a lot of companion planting with that. I've got some of my culinary herbs like basil and holy basil, those annuals that have to be started from seed every year. And then I have a bunch of different medicinal flower seeds. And if you're curious to see what I'm growing medicinal flower-wise, especially from seed, you'll want to check out the video that I have done on that walks you through how to do cold seed stratification, because some of your flowers actually have to go through a cold process before they will sprout, but that's not true with vegetables. Now, we've talked about making sure we have our seed supply right, and actually the importance of considering seed saving if you're not. You're also going to want to do seed starting. And starting with heirloom seeds as your base is going to get you to be able to do that. But planning, if you're really planning on having to feed your family or perhaps trying to feed your family or increase the amount of food that you're producing at home, is how much to plant per person, which is going to let you know how many seeds do I actually need to get. So I have the family garden plan that walks you through pretty much A to Z to growing a year's worth of food for your family, from the planning stages like we're talking about right now to seed starting, harvesting, preserving, all those fun things. But the good news is you can actually get for free the chart on fruits and vegetables on how much to plant per person for a year's worth of food. So if you want to go to familygardenplan.com, I'll have a link beneath the video so you can click there. You can actually get and download this chart completely for free. It's just one of the many charts that's in this book, The Family Garden Plan. Now, you probably heard me say that I actually started my cabbage this summer for my fall cabbage crop a little bit too late. That's why that head of cabbage was super small. And once you hit getting a lot of frost and you're in the portion of winter where the daylight hours are really short, they don't really grow beyond the size that they are right then. So they'll kind of stay like in hibernation mode out in the garden, but they don't really produce much larger than what they're at. So that means I need to plant them earlier. And that is where the Family Garden Planner comes into action. So this has seed starting and planting. So not only in the early spring, but also when to plant for fall crops as well. So it walks you through in alphabetical order, letting you know all of those tips, how many days it should take it to germinate, if you're direct sowing, if you're starting it indoors, your sow date, and then the plant. But the great thing is this is an actual year, week, and day planner. So I will actually be marking that I'm gonna be starting mine 2 weeks earlier this summer and putting it into my day planner so that I don't miss those planting dates, because I feel like this year, just kind of like last, is more important that I get everything dialed in just a little bit more and a little bit better. So I will be using this, which is the Family Garden Planner. So these are great. You can use them independently, but they also work really well together. And this is how I keep track of all of our gardening and our food, as well as how much gets produced. So this time of year, if you're looking at my November and December dates when we're filming this, I don't have a whole lot coming in harvest-wise from the garden, just a little bit. I still have potatoes I'm bringing in and some of those root crops. But this was back in the summer, and so I have notes of how much I brought in. There's harvest yield notes, which is really great. So I can look back at this and know as I'm planning this year how much to plant, if I need to increase or decrease certain amounts of plants. And I've got all of the notes and data here so that I can know for sure what we need to do for our family. So you can go and grab those free charts and get started planning your garden.